I'm the Executive Director of the Chamber of Commerce, and I want to thank all of you for coming tonight and all the candidates for making time to be here tonight for us. Just so as you can see, we have a very full panel up here, and so we are going to, just so all of the candidates know, we are going to cut the closing statement down to 2 minutes. So if you don't think you got your 3 minutes, we're doing that across the board just for time's sake, because I think it's going to run a little long here. So again, thank you everybody for being here, and I'll turn it over to Sean Ungerman.
Again, I want to welcome everybody here tonight. Just a quick reminder, if you could silence your cell phones, so we don't have any interruptions during our forum tonight. We're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance, which will be led by Mika Madrid, who's the Executive Director, the President of the Chamber.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And candidates, sorry, we only have one mic. So as you answer your question, just pass it down the line and we'll get it back this way, okay? Thanks.
Tim, that means you get some exercise in tonight, I guess. Or somebody. I'm going to start with just reading the procedures for our forum tonight. So I'm just going to, I think all the candidates have these, but I'm going to read them just so everybody's aware. In an effort to support an environment of respect and timeliness, we have set forth some forum procedures and guidelines, which are listed below. Please do not open either of the questions at your station until instructed to do so by myself. So the process will be, we'll have an opening statement. Each candidate will be given 2 minutes for an opening statement. After that, we'll go with our round one questions. The way it'll work is after each, I'm going to call them a group, everybody running for a certain office. Once that group is done, I'll instruct them that you can open your questions. So wait till I instruct you then. But after the opening statements, there'll be the round one questions. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer those questions. Then we'll do our round two questions, and then closing statements, and it's 2 minutes each for all of those. If you look down here in the front row, David, if you want to wave your hand. David Benton is our timer tonight, so if you'll watch him, he will hold up a sign at the 1 minute mark, the 15-second mark, and the stop. At that point, you should immediately end your answer. Should a candidate's answer extend beyond the 2 minutes, the candidate will be penalized by losing time for their closing statements. So we thank you for your cooperation with those. Okay, so we will begin at this side of the table with our opening statements, and go to that point.
Thank you. My name is Steve Helling, and I am a Democratic candidate for the position of the U.S. House of Representatives. I want to thank the Evanston Chamber of Commerce for putting this on tonight and giving me this opportunity. I have never been a politician before in my life, and I think that will become apparent as this forum continues. I think this is something that needs to be done. I've had several forums canceled because none of my opponents have shown up. I've never met Ms. Graybold, and I've never met Ms. Jensen. But Monday night I was up in Thermopolis at the forum up there. I've attended the Wyoming Stockbrokers Association and other forums. And so this is a rare opportunity for me. And I thank the Chamber again for this opportunity. I decided to run for office because, like 90% of the people in this country, I was unhappy with the direction that this country was headed. But in addition, I was mad. I'm mad at this January 6th committee. that just drags on and is so unfair and one-sided. No right of cross-examination, no due process. Witnesses are being hauled in and asked very personal questions, and most of the proceedings are in secret. They've staged 8 or 9 television shows with a TV producer, but all of the other proceedings are in secret. Witnesses can't even get a transcript of their testimony. When witnesses testify in a grand jury, they can get a transcript of their own testimony, but that's not allowed here. I see that I have 15 seconds left. Not much time, but I'm mad about the loss of energy independence that we had just a year and a half ago. I'm mad about the loss of border control. I'm just one-man individual.
Steve, you can go ahead and open your round 1 question. It looks like our Secretary of State candidates are not here, so we'll move down to Kurt.
Thank you, and it's nice to be.
Dan's supposed to be here for Tara.
Really. Don't start my clock. Go ahead. Come on now. Come on down, Dan. You're in the lineup here, buddy.
Dan, before you go, we do have a statement from Megan Jensen.
That's Chuck Gray.
Chuck Gray, okay, Chuck Gray. There's a statement from Chuck Gray that Mika's going to read.
Go ahead.
Okay. Chuck Gray is running for Secretary of State with the Republican Party. He wants to say, thank you for this opportunity to provide a statement. I'm sorry I wasn't able to be there. I'm a small business owner, a small business person, and have represented portions of Casper in the state legislature for 6 years. The Secretary of State oversees elections, and that is a large part of why I'm running. During my service in the state legislature, over the past 6 years, I'm the only SOS candidate with a proven conservative record and a proven record regarding election integrity. I was the lead sponsor of the voter ID bill, which passed in the 2021 session. My work as a public servant has always been dedicated to giving power and accountability back to the people from which it's being taken away by big government policies, self-serving politicians, and bureaucratic overreach. I've led on fighting out-of-control property tax increases. With me, that you see is what you get. There are many common sense reforms we must take to our election processes. We must ban ballot drop boxes. These ballot drop boxes are unattended and open up our elections to ballot harvesting fraud. We must also move to an election with entirely paper ballots with no exceptions. There also needs to be an audit of each election. The state needs to fight to protect the voter ID law I led on, and we must ban crossover voting and also have runoffs. The recently announced policy of hiding certain voter registration and turnout data from the public is a horrible idea and a recipe for disaster. We need more transparency, not less. The Secretary of State also serves as Lieutenant Governor and as a member of both the State Loan and Investment Board and the State Board of Land Commissioner, among others. So we need one who has a proven conservative track record. The WyomingVote.com, the American Conservative Union, and the Wyoming Right to Life have all recognized my conservative track record. Please contact me anytime at 307-251-1372, and I ask for your support.
All right, Dan.
Okay, thank you. Dan Doxter, stepping in for Senator Tara Nethercott. I stepped out the first part of July and endorsed Senator Nethercott as I felt like she was the person to represent the state well as Secretary of State. She's fifth generation Wyoming native, graduate of Riverton High School and the University of Wyoming. She currently resides in Cheyenne and has been a small business owner and a practicing attorney. She was elected to the Senate in 2016. She's chairman of the Judiciary Committee and a key leader on the Corporations, Elections, and Political Subdivisions Committee that deals with our elections. And I'll tell you that she is one of the key people that works the legislation that deals with our elections in that committee. She does a great job. Her commitment to the people of Wyoming has earned her the Wyoming County Commissioners Association Legislature of the Year Award 2021, Wyoming Federation of Firefighters Legislature of the Year Award in 2020. She understands the role of Secretary of State. It's broad. It's not just limited to the elections alone. Includes the Business Division, Compliance Division, and Election Division. Nethercott's combined experience in economic development, her legal background, and commitment to Wyoming values will help her serve in that position well. Her statement says, "I'm excited for the opportunity to continue to serve the people of Wyoming as Secretary of State. We should be proud of our elections. Wyoming serves as an example to the nation for election integrity. But it's more important than ever to protect Wyoming's elections," she says right now. "I will be steadfast," she says, "I will be steadfast and vigilant to ensure safe and secure elections, to defend our shared Western values, and will bring my experience and dedication to the job as your next Republican Secretary of State." Standing in for Senator Tara Nethercott, those are her comments. Ask for your support for her. Thank you.
And you can go ahead and open that round one question.
Okay, I'm Kurt Meyer. I'm running for re-election as your state treasurer, and it's a pleasure being here in Evanston tonight. And one of the big pleasures it is because the election night 4 years ago, I was watching the returns came in, and when I saw how Uintah County supported my candidacy back then, I knew it was going to be a really great night. So it's really exciting to be here in Uintah County in Evanston. Made a few promises the last time. One was that we were going to get our permanent mineral trust fund that has a little over $9 billion up the median, which basically we did that in less than 3 years. We went to 23.3% return when the median return of our peer group was 23.1. Now what that means is that on average, we got another 2% return on $9 billion. That's $180 million that normally hadn't gone into the general fund in the past will go into the general fund from now and in the future. We also have great returns. We started with $20 billion in all of our funds, and in less than 3 years again, we went up to $25 billion. So we added another $5 billion of assets under management. That basically just means we got a lot more money working for you to keep your taxes down. There's a lot of things that the state treasurer does. They were mentioned before by Chuck Gray as far as the different boards. And then one thing that I will promise again, and I always have, I'll listen to you. When we get on these boards, we're in front of the business council, when we're in front of the slip board, I'll make sure that you've got a voice down there. And when something needs to happen in Uintah County, give me a call. I'll be there, and we'll try to make it happen on those different boards. But thank you.
Kurt, you can go ahead and open your round one question.
Well, thank you all for coming out tonight. My name is Brian Schrader. This is happening all over Wyoming, and it very much inspires me. Thank you for caring about the future of your state and the future of your country by coming out to these kinds of things. And it has also been for me a tremendous honor to serve over the last 6 months as your state superintendent of public instruction. Ever since, let me give just a little background. My name is Brian Schrader. I was born in St. Louis, Missouri, grew up in southeastern Wisconsin. My wife and I have been married 36 years. We have 7 children, all grown and raised, and have flown the coop. Very proud of every one of them. All of our kids went to public school, I have 4 grandkids and 4 granddaughters, 1 grandson coming on the way, and 2 of our kids getting married, 1 in August and 1 in October. So have we bit off a little bit too much over this period of time? But I would just want to say to you by way of an opener that ever since I came to Wyoming, it became very apparent to me very quickly that there's something deep in the DNA and character of the Wyoming people that sets the stage for a model of education that could become the envy of our entire country. And so Wyoming is poised to lead the nation in education. That doesn't mean she will, but she could. And if she could, she should. But for that to happen, there's some things that are going to have to be focused on like a laser beam. One is to recover the purpose of education. And the purpose of education can be summed up essentially in 4 words: to learn, to think. That's been the purpose of education for over 1,000 years. It's only been in the last 100 years that a progressive mindset shifted the paradigm, and we've been experimenting with our kids ever since. So that's the beginning of laying a foundation that could lead the nation in education. Thank you.
Well, good evening. It's great to be here in Evanston. My name is Megan Degenfelder, and I'm running for State Superintendent of Public Instruction. I come from a 6th-generation Wyoming ranching family. We ranch just west of the airport, the Casper Airport. I grew up attending public schools in Casper, graduated from the University of Wyoming, and hold a master's degree in economics. Met my husband at the University of Wyoming, and he has a very similar story. We've both been able to build successful lives and careers here in our home state. And that's why I'm so passionate about this position, to ensure that we're creating those same opportunities, better opportunities for our future generations. Far too often we're told that our industries are dying, that our kids are leaving this state, but we can and we will create opportunities for them to have successful futures here in Wyoming. I've split my career between the private sector as well as education. I worked in the coal industry up in Gillette, and now currently work in oil and gas, where my #1 responsibility is to fight back against the federal government, fight back against harmful regulations that hurt our industry and hurt our state. In education, I served under previous Superintendent Jillian Balo as Chief Policy Officer, where I oversaw budget reductions, consolidated staff, and partnered with the legislature to update the state's basket of goods to include computer science. And that was the first change in 20 years. As superintendent, I will plan to empower parents, ensuring that they are the #1 voice in their child's education and have as many choices as possible for their child. And I'll partner with industry, making sure that our education system is more nimble so that we meet the needs of the ever-changing workforce. And I'll work to cut out government from the classroom, whether it be in duplicative reporting, the red tape, or bureaucracy that is a heavy load, and to push out those radical political agendas that we see in the classroom, like critical race theory, that don't belong with our children in the classroom. So we ensure that our teachers can do what they do best, and that's to teach. My name is Megan Degenfelder, Superintendent of Public Instruction. Thank you.
Good evening to each and every one of you. My name is Sergio Maldonado. I was born and raised in the metropolis of Riverton, primarily in the Wind River Reservation. I have a bachelor's degree from Brigham Young University. I have a master's degree from Arizona State University Curriculum and Instruction Administration. I have completed the PhD program in Justice Studies, Law and Policy at ASU. I moved back home in 2006, but always spending my summers here. My mother is from the Wind River Reservation. My father is from Pihuahua, Jalisco. I'm currently wrapping up a PhD program with curriculum instruction at the University of Wyoming with Dr. John Cambuto and my committee. I will say this was a serious, thought-provoking undertaking. We have some of the best teachers in the nation here. Parents, community people, but at the same time, I recognize that we still have room for growth. I support what the other candidates have said. Education is a collaborative effort with parents, teachers, superintendents, but more importantly, with the legislative body. Yes, we have a mandate at the education or at the Constitution level to provide to fund for education. But each and every one of us know that oil and gas monies have slowed down quite a bit. So that calls for leadership. One who's going to put together a package of goods with our students, families, and children for the benefit of our future. I am very concerned about what has happened across America and also within Wyoming. But yet I also know that under my leadership as superintendent of public instruction, yes, we can make this happen. I look forward to your support in the elections. I am a Democratic Party member. Thank you.
Wendy, before you go, we do have one statement to be read from another candidate.
Sure.
The other candidates for superintendent of public instruction can open the question.
This statement comes from Jennifer Zerba, who's running for Wyoming State Superintendent of Public Instruction. She is also with the Republican Party. Jennifer has taught Wyoming for the Natrona County School District as a board-certified substitute teacher over the last 3 years. She has her Wyoming Professional Instructor certification to teach business, business administration, business management, and human service. She understands firsthand the effects of millions of dollars in budget cuts we have had over the last several years. As State Superintendent of Public Instruction, she will work with the department and Wyoming educators to involve classroom educators in improving the application of our state resources and how together we can better serve the needs of our students. Together we will encourage policy and procedure makers to volunteer in their local schools to better understand how financial decisions affect students and educators. We will create better financial transparency by having all districts publish their budgets on the district website. Currently, only a few budgets are published, such as Natrona County School District budget and Laramie County School District budget. We will work closely with legislators to ensure amendments are passed to the state funding, that state funding is spent on what the funding was spent on in all districts. She will work with the department to alert and support parents' involvement with their children's education through their children's curriculum assessments, parent-teacher conferences, volunteering at their child's schools, or running for their local school board. Parents have and will always have a voice for their own children. And for more information about Jennifer and her campaign, you can visit zerba4wysopi.com.
Hi, I'm Wendy Schuler, born and raised here in Evanston. Actually, not raised in Evanston. Born up here at the old hospital, which is now the senior center. And I was raised in Mountain View, fifth generation ranch family. So I learned how to work hard early. Then I ended up going to the University of Wyoming for a few years, getting my teaching degree. I came back to Mendon County, taught at Lyman High School for 6 years. Ended up coming back to Evanston, 34 years. So I spent 40 years teaching high school kids, and I'm still alive and I can still smile. So I think that's good. But I think I know what works in education, what doesn't, after spending that many years with those kids, and I loved every minute of it. I spent 8 years on the city council here, and so I kind of think I have a pretty good idea of what works with government and what doesn't. And I have a lot of folks here in our county that convinced me that I should, try something bigger and better. I don't know if it's bigger and better, but I ran and I'm running for re-election because I feel like maybe I still have some unfinished business, some things that I think I can still get through. I think that I've developed some good rapport, not only with the folks here, but with the folks down there in Cheyenne. I've been able to get some legislation through that's pretty meaningful, either sponsored or co-sponsored quite a few bills, and so I think it was real important for me to get that respect. I serve as vice chairman of the TRW committee. I've served on revenue, I've served on corporations, I've served on labor and health. I've been on a couple of task forces as well. So I have a pretty good, basic, I think well-rounded view of what needs to happen, whether it be ranching, ag, tourism, education, you name it. kind of one of those all-around gals. So I hope that you'll just show up on August 16th, whether you vote for me or anybody else. Get out there and vote. Thank you.
Good evening. I too wanted to thank the Chamber for putting this event together, for those of you who have come out to attend. My name is Bob Worf. You'll see a few of my signs around town that say Robert. Anything that's official, I've always used my given name, but all my friends know me as Bob. But I have been politically active ever since I moved to the state. My family moved here in 2000. I started up a sportsman's group, and I have been actively involved in sportsman's issues, hunting, fishing, trapping, Second Amendment issues. You know, one of the things I'm most proud of is our Wyoming Wildlife Natural Resource Trust. That to me is a crown jewel of things that we accomplished as sportsmen. I'm also very proud of the fact that we were able to get the wolves delisted under the dual status that we fought so hard to secure in the state. I'm disappointed we had grizzly bears delisted, only to see them go back on the list twice. But I really am frustrated with what I see today in our country. The Constitution's written in plain, simple English, and I don't believe we're following it at all. And I guess that's what's motivating me to run. I've been one term in the House. I'm now seeking the opportunity to represent you in the Senate. I would like to see us start asserting state sovereignty, states' rights, and start telling the federal government to stick to their enumerated powers. And that's what I will do if you send me back to Cheyenne to represent you in the state Senate. So thank you for your time. And do get out and vote on the 16th, as Wendy said. I think it's important that we all participate. Thank you.
Thank you. The candidates for District 15 can go through the round of questions.
Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for being here. I want to echo the kind thoughts that my colleagues have also expressed. Thanks for being here. It is extremely important at this dynamic time to be a part of this electoral process. My name is John Conrad, and I'm running for House District 19. My campaign specifically can be summed up in 3 words. It's about leadership, it's about accountability, and it's about results. It's about representing you, our great residents, and just as importantly, this great county that's called Uintah County. As you can see on my campaign, Uintah County is what makes Wyoming great. We are at the doorsteps of a number of aspects here. First, people coming from the west to the east, they come to Uintah County first on their travels to the east. The second part of that endeavor, this is a dynamic time not only related to our elections, but also in terms of our education for our kids moving forward, providing a viable future for them as we look at the amount of jobs coming into this country, specifically in this county, north and east of us. It's imperative that we provide an opportunity for our children. It's not about exporting coal, it's not about exporting soda ash or natural gas. Unfortunately, we've been exporting a lot of our children. I want to provide a viable opportunity for our children to stay in this country, this county specifically, instead of going on the Wasatch Front or elsewhere. I've lived in this valley for 25 years now. I have served our military, and I'm the commander of VFW at Post 7798. 21 years of military service. I've also served and continue to serve on the Uintah Economic Development Association, the Wyoming Economic Development Association. I've served as vice chairman on the board of parole. I've also served and continue to serve on the Suicide Prevention Task Force in Uintah County. It's tragic that unfortunately we are rated #1 in the state of Wyoming for suicides. I want to do something about that. I'll share more of this message with you in the conclusion of my at our 2-minute finale. This is about representing you, nothing else, and being your voice in this county in Cheyenne. Thank you.
Hey John, Carl Allred, and I'm running for House District 19. Of the candidates here, I am the one candidate that has a record in politics, in representing Republican values across this state. I've served Uintah County for over a decade, representing them at the state Republican Party, and in legislative committee meetings, at the legislative sessions. I've been there, and I fought for the people of Wyoming. Recently, they tried to bring a corporate income tax in here, and hidden inside that was a personal income tax. Well, as I read the bill through and I found that, I showed up at the Revenue Committee meeting, and in front of the media and everybody else, I called them out on it, and I pointed it out so that everybody knew what they were trying to do. By the time they got to the committee, to the session, that wording was gone. These are the kind of things I do across the state all the time for you. And I've done real good on the Central Committee. I'm the one who put in that the Republican Party will never be in a place that denies us our Second Amendment rights. I fought against the governor and the leaders in the legislature when they did the Capitol Reconstruction Project without one single bid on those contracts in violation of the law. So I don't bow down to anybody. I stand on my principles, and I will represent you. Thank you.
My name is Andy Stocks. I'm also running for House District 19. Up until April, this was not something that I ever even considered anything I ever wanted to really be involved with. But as I've come to learn and have some meetings with some of our conservative legislators and stuff like that, it's really been difficult for me to accept the idea that when you go to a committee hearing or some of these meetings held that are considered public, that they don't want us there. I participated in one where they were talking about Russian oligarch money and stuff like that in the state, and we didn't feel comfortable. Me and my wife, we thought we dressed inappropriately because everybody there was dressed to the nines. And what we found out afterward, after meeting with some of the representatives of government, is they really don't want us there. They don't want to see the transparency of what they're doing behind closed doors. And to me, that bothered me. I've been out going door to door. I've been talking to a lot of people across the valley. If I haven't made it to your house, it's probably because some of my stops are 15 minutes, 45 minutes. I've had up to an hour and a half where people have been addressing concerns to me. I've had meetings with our local law enforcement, first responders, fire department, and they all have some grave concerns that they're not being heard. They have needs, infrastructure needs and so forth that aren't being met, that from what I understand have the potential for placing some of our lives in jeopardy. We want to protect our Second Amendment, our states' rights. We're tired of the government telling us what we can and can't say, and my goal in getting elected is absolute transparency in how we vote, and thank you for your time.
The candidates for District 19 can open the round of nominations now.
Okay. All right. Well, my name is Ryan Berger, and I'm running for House District 49 here in Evanston. And first off, I want to just say thanks to the Chamber, but thanks to all these great people that are up here today. What an honor. You guys are awesome. Everybody represented from all across this state and even in this community. And it's just an honor to be up here. I think it's just wonderful. I don't know how many generations I've been here. I'm not going to say, but I was born in Jackson, Wyoming, and came here in the early 80s. My wife and I both grew up here in Evanston, went to school here, and we went off to the University of Wyoming. We both got teaching degrees, and we came back to the community that we love, and we're here teaching today. And we love it. We've raised our family, and we continue to raise it. We're hoping to raise some grandkids one day, but they don't want to get married or meet anybody, so I don't know. But one thing that what I've noticed, or what everybody wants, is a leader. And I just want to let you know, I've proven my leadership in the classroom. I'm a proven leader on the field of competition. I've been a coach at many levels. I've coached many abilities. And my wife and I are huge supporters of our community. We go out to the small businesses and we really lead by example. You know, as I get out into the community, and especially in our small businesses and talk to people, owners, to people, the consumers and everybody that are there, three things that come up. Three. One, they want to be heard, want to be listened to. Two, they want to be, they want a voice in Cheyenne, and they want to be represented in Cheyenne. And those are the qualities I have, and those are the qualities I want to take to Cheyenne. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Vladimir Allred. I'm running for House District 49. I've grown up and lived in Wyoming my entire life. I've been married and have 3 kids here. I see things all around the state that are very bothering, let alone the country itself. But as we look at the specific issues, people just want to understand what's actually going on. So here's the thing. Everybody up here is running for political office. But I think every person on this stage, if you call them a politician, they try to weasel out of that. They're like, no, I'm not a politician. Trust me, I'm just one of you. And I think that's because people don't trust politicians. You go from talking point to talking point, things that sound good and nice, but it has no substance to it. So that's kind of why I'm running for this House district, because I know what my principles are. I am small government. I'm Second Amendment, pro-life. The thing is, with the constitutional republic, you're supposed to elect people that you think represent your morals and values. If they don't, or if they're just wished around on the whims of the mob, then you don't actually know what you're voting for. So by voting for me, you know, I encourage anyone to sit down and talk with me, figure out where I actually stand on the issues. I'm a constitutionalist. I care about this community and this state and the future for my children. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you to the Evanston Chamber of Commerce for hosting this candidate forum. I'm Tim Beppler, and I'm running for House District 49. I'd also like to thank my wife, Katie. If it wasn't for her courage and support, I wouldn't be standing here. For those of you who don't know me, our family moved to Evanston in the late 1970s during the boom times when oil and natural gas had been discovered in the overthrust bill. I came here as a deputy county attorney, prosecuting crime, advising the county on civil matters, including industrial revenue bonding, which helped finance much of the equipment at the gas plants and other significant projects in our community. Through my career, I established a successful law practice emphasizing estate planning, business planning, and real estate matters. As Evanston continued to grow, we were involved in the community, probably as much as we were involved in our occupations as teacher and lawyer. When the U.S. Post Office announced that they were going to move to the outskirts of Evanston, I was part of a team, the Urban Renewal Agency at that time, that was able to convince them to stay in the downtown. When we needed to increase and improve our access to the Bear River, I was part of the Bear River Project team that helped establish Evanston's Greenbelt. When we lost our recycling services, I led the team that helped establish a community partnership of the city, the county, and private enterprise to provide recycling services in our community. I'm running for the state legislature because I'm concerned and want to help and provide an effective voice to address problems with those who are in need of healthcare services, to provide stabilized funding for our educational services, to work on affordable housing so that it's no longer a barrier to teacher recruitment and retention and business development. And for all of those reasons, I'll ask for your vote when it comes time for the general election, since I don't have anybody opposing me in the primary.
The candidates for District 49 can open their round of questions. Tammy's got a couple of more statements from some of the candidates that weren't able to make it tonight.
The first one is from Megan Jensen, United States Representative Candidate, Democrat Party. Thank you, Tammy and the Evanston Chamber of Commerce for the invitation to the forum this evening. I regret to inform you that I will not be able to be in attendance this evening. Please accept my apologies and would appreciate it if you would pass this on to your attendees. I would also like to express my gratitude to all those who participate in their civic duties and encourage anyone interested in getting to know me to visit Megan Jensen for wi.com. Thank you, Megan Jensen. And then I have a letter here, or a statement from Governor Gordon. Good evening, Evanston Chamber of Commerce members and guests. My thanks to Tammy Staley and everyone who worked to put this event together. My sincere regrets for not being able to attend with my friends in Evanston and Uintah County. I grew up on the family ranch outside of Casey. In time, I bought my own place east of Buffalo. My wife Jenny and I still ranch and are honored to serve as your governor and first lady. I'm a lifelong conservative, staunch defender of Second Amendment rights, and an advocate for smaller government closest to the people. I am committed to protecting our state from the increasingly heavy hand of the federal government and more acutely the Biden administration's failed policies. I successfully fought Biden's push for school closures, vaccine mandates, and other excessive requirements. Just look at our record. Wyoming led the nation with more in-person school days during the worst of the pandemic. That was good for our students, good for our communities, good for our economy, and something we can all be proud of. I have guided our state through the worst pandemic in a century and the largest drop in state revenues in our history. Wyoming emerged strong because we constantly focused on the lives and the livelihoods of Wyoming people. Gas and groceries are not luxury items, which is why I have been fighting Biden's overreaching federal policies since on day one, his administration ended new oil and gas leasing on most of Wyoming's public lands, leading to the worst inflation we have seen in 40 years. It seems every day that Biden is attacking our state, our economy, and our values. I am also fighting President Biden's 30 by 30 program, which aims to put more land under federal control. Any such program, any attempt by the feds to gain control over more land is not for Wyoming. We have more to do, and I'm here to say Jenny and I are all in for Wyoming. We truly believe Wyoming's best days are ahead of us. I ask for your support and your vote in August. God bless you, God bless America, and God bless the great state of Wyoming. Sincerely, Governor Mark Gordon.
So the round one questions with the United States Representative. The first question is, if elected, how would you create a more cohesive environment within elected parties?
Thank you. There is a lot of lack of cohesiveness. I'm the most conservative Democrat you will ever meet. I try to blur the lines between Republicans and Democrats. Perhaps a bipartisan voluntary code of conduct, recommended code of conduct would be in order. But I think part of the problem is that there's a lack of confidence in our election process. When half the people think the election is stolen, half the people don't consider the elected official to be legitimate, it is hard to be cohesive. It's going to cause great dispute. In this last election, we had 68 million mail-in ballots, and yet the press and the government tell you this was the most secure election in the history of the United States. And that is so absurd. It was the most unsecure election in the United States. There had never been more than 29 million mail-in ballots in any election before. Bangor in this past election had 68 million. I am someone who actually thinks that the election probably was stolen. If you Google Biden fewest counties, you'll see that by far he was the least popular president in this country's history in terms of geography. How many counties did he win? What percentage of the counties did he win? And it was by dozens and dozens and dozens fewer than any president in our history. And yet he got by far the most votes any president has ever gotten in this history. Pennsylvania had 6.7 million registered voters that were shown to have voted on their rolls, but they counted 6.9 million ballots. There were 202,000 additional ballots counted. The courts in Pennsylvania, and even in the last couple of weeks in Wisconsin, have said the states didn't follow the proper rules. They broke the rules, and thank you.
Thank you, Steve. You can open your round two question. The first question for the Secretary of State candidate is, with election integrity being placed at the center of our country and your campaign, what do you think needs to be fixed or improved with Wyoming's elections, and what steps would you take to make those changes?
Well, speaking on behalf of Senator Nethercott, and she and I were thinking the same, you need to go out and work directly with your elected county clerks. They want to particularly change, then we go out and work with them specifically. If there's a concern about election integrity, we go out there and fix it. Our responsibility, her responsibility, would be from this point forward, that is your responsibility, that's her responsibility to make sure that we got a secure election. You can't go back and change what was in the past, but the responsibility is now that we have secure elections from here on out in Wyoming and work directly with the county clerks. And I know she did that through her corporation's assignment. She knew them personally, and she visited with them. And I was doing the same, actually, calling them and visiting in person up until that point, because I wanted to hear what they wanted in their particular counties to make sure that they have secure elections. And that's how you do it. From this point out, the responsibility is the next Secretary of State's position to do that. And she has made statements that she's committed to do that repetitively. She will make sure those elections are secure in Wyoming, working with the elected officials in each county. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. You can go ahead and open your round two question. The first question for State Treasurer: how secure are Wyoming investments with the downturn in the economy?
I will say that they're as secure as they possibly can. We looked at this situation that we had as far as overvalued assets over 2 years ago. It started moving and making changes so that we repaired. And this is some of the things we did. The first thing we needed to do was get flexibility. We went to the legislature. We got what's called a reference portfolio, which meant that we're working off of a risk and not a prescription as far as what equities and what fixed income we can buy. And we moved from 37% fixed income down to 15%. Now, why is that important? Because when interest rates go up, the underlying value of your asset, if it's fixed income, goes way down. So we took a lot of risk right off the table, and we moved it into areas where it actually moves with the interest rate. So we moved into areas like private equity. We moved into areas like private credit. Areas where when the interest rate goes up, that those different instruments can be reset at a higher rate, and you don't lose anything in that area. Now, when the stock market goes down, yeah, you're going to lose some. But we moved most of the stuff into things like real estate, infrastructure, that doesn't have the correlation with the stock market. So essentially, we got one real estate firm with $1.25 billion in it, and they returned in this first part of the year 15.68%. So that's going to help us as far as the overall loss that you're going to see in our portfolio. And we did it because we knew it was happening 2 years ago, and we essentially structured all of our investments to make sure that when this thing came, that we're going to be in the best shape we could, and that's where we are.
Thank you, Kurt. You can go ahead and open your round two question. The first question for our superintendent of public instruction. Wyoming has one of the highest teen suicide rates in the country. What would your leadership do to help our teens?
Well, one of the things I neglected to mention in my introduction was that I was in education. My life followed 3 career tracks. I was in education for 17 and a half years, both as a teacher and principal. And then I moved over into pastoral ministry for 7 years. And then for the 14 and a half years before my Cody had head up a school, I was in the professional counseling field as a family and youth counselor, working with delinquent teenage boys and girls and abuse, neglect teenagers and their families. And so I worked consistently and regularly with a lot of suicidal young people. And this problem, of course, is very complex and painful, but I would start by saying the last thing our kids need is more programs. We're programming them to death, and we have secularized them to death. And in my work with young people, 2 things emerged as they were struggling with suicidal ideation, and that was meaninglessness. Life had become meaningless to them. There was no reason or purpose to go on. And the other was clinical depression. And both of those, if those take hold on the human heart, are a stronghold. And what a stronghold is something that takes such a strong hold that you can no longer overcome it yourself anymore. And so, so what kids need is not more programs, but they need a healing presence. And if you have more than one, you have a healing community. So one of the first things perhaps we could do at the Department of Education level, and I think many of our schools are already doing this very well, I've seen it in the sense that, but becoming a healing community to these kids. But this kind of stronghold starts in the home, where kids are detached and disconnected, even while they're at home. It's fed by social media, it's fed by secularization, and so I feel like our schools need to be able to bring a little religious freedom back into our schools and allow our teachers and principals to refer not only to counselors, but to pastors, so both the spiritual needs can be addressed of meaninglessness and the emotional needs of depression. That's where I would start on a one-on-one basis with people moving in as a healing presence.
Well, this is a very troubling issue in our state. The teen suicide rates is something we've absolutely got to address, because if our children are not mentally or physically well, we can't expect them to learn. We can't expect them to succeed in their learning. And so we've got to address this, I think, in a couple of ways. Number 1, providing supports to our students, and then number 2, addressing the root cause and addressing that upstream issue that we're seeing. In terms of support, I've thought a lot about how, as I've been traveling the state, how overwhelmed our counselors are in our schools. Currently in the funding model, we have 1 category for counselors, and that's largely our career and guidance counselors. Yet we're expecting those who have been trained in career and guidance counseling to be able to deal with some of these complex mental health issues. So I'd really like to see a separation there between our counseling and to make sure that we're addressing those needs in the appropriate way. And then secondly, I'd really like to explore, throughout the pandemic, we've really used virtual healthcare in ways as a state. If we could have a cohort where districts could have a buy-in to that program to be able to provide those mental health services via technology, so that we're reducing costs, but we're still providing needs to our kids. In terms of that upstream solution, I really believe that we've got to look at every single district individually. Issues for children are going to be different in Evanston than they are in Lyman or in Mountain View or anywhere in the state. And so we want to look at a district by district level at what those issues are, whether it's bullying, whether it's issues at home, and then we address those, whether that be zero tolerance for bullying or other initiatives that we can have, providing additional career pathways so that our students do feel purpose in their everyday in school. And so I think it's very complex, and we need to handle that district by district. And lastly, I would say, I think every elected official, every member of the community has the obligation to lead by example, make sure that we're treating each other well, and we're really leading our kids to be kind to each other. Thank you.
This is an extremely difficult question, simply because it affects all of America. In Wyoming, when I hear data like this, which I've been aware of, it affects you to the heart, to the core. I'm a grandfather, I'm a parent, I'm the oldest son to Jimmy and Marguerite Spoonhunter. I've worked in federal prisons, FCI North Phoenix for 10 years as a contractual teacher. And the number of men who probably entertain the idea of suicide is at a 100% level. But the question poses this: what will your leadership do to help our teams? First and foremost, I am that type of person. Yes, we have technology and everything else that is attached to our students at all ages. But I am one of those leaders who will go face to face with our communities, our families, and seek out their input also. Mention was made about the existing variables that surround people who not only have the ideation of suicide, but also complete suicide. On the Wind River Indian Reservation, we may be number 1 in the state, but on the Wind River Indian Reservation, we supersede state data. This is not only personal, this is family, but this has been an ongoing dilemma. I use the word dilemma, not problem, because this can be solved. And as educators, every one of us want our students to have not so much an ideal environment, but a reality-based environment. Our teachers provide that one-on-one communication. I will work with our teachers. How can we do better in questioning and working with young people who have this on their mindset? Very tough scenario, but I do know that under my leadership as State Superintendent of Public Instruction, we will survive, but we will also have a good ending. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The candidates for Superintendent of Public Instruction can open up to question. The first question for District 15 senators is, if elected, how would you create a more cohesive environment within the elected parties?
It's really a good question. It's something we've got to work on. We need to start doing it now. Quite frankly, I've been not only disappointed, but embarrassed by some of the tactics that have happened within my own party. Name calling, mudslinging, people tearing down signs, defacing signs. It's been, I mean, I see junior high kids doing this kind of stuff. So we need to stop that. We need to start acting like adults. We need to start treating each other with respect. And I think that's something that I can bring to the table, because I did, like I said, I gained respect of the folks in the Senate and also the House. I worked with House members on bills. I worked with senators on both sides of the aisle. Actually, I sit with a Democrat, and you know, there's only 2 of them in the Senate, but we get along great. I don't get involved in the politics. I get involved with people, and I think that's where we need to start, is just, you know, leave the politics out of it, sit down and talk, and communicate, and see, first of all, if we can get our own party head in the right direction. I've actually thrown my name in the hat. I've never done this before as a committee person, because I thought, you know, I'm hearing complaints from people here in my county about what's going on. I need to just get involved. If I get elected, I'm gonna at least try and find some solutions instead of just throwing mud and doing things that I think are really not, you know, they're not good for the party. They're not good for our people. And so I think I can collaborate. I think I can bring the cooperative things that I've learned how to do over the years of working with high school kids. I think I can bring it to our party and try to help make it more cohesive and make it a party that I can be proud of. And I've been a lifelong Republican all my life, and some of the things that have happened in the past year have been really disappointing. So I'll work hard if I'm reelected to get a more collaborative and get more compromise going with folks in my party as well as the other party. Thank you.
I got a different question. No, I'm just teasing you. My question's the same, oddly enough. One of the things that I think is difficult, you know, I look at what I was able to achieve with getting the wolves delisted. And we formed a coalition, a very diverse group of different entities that typically did not get along. And I think that's probably the starting point. But one of the things that I think is really hard, and it's important for you people to understand, is politics is about who gets to govern, who's in power. And I can tell you there's always a winning side and a losing side.
And I can tell you, it's hard when you talk about principles. It's hard to compromise on principles, and I'm unwilling to compromise on the principles. If you send me to go represent you, I'm going to fight hard for the principles that we espouse as Republicans. Sometimes that makes it difficult to work with the Democrats, but I agree with what's been said. Senator Schuler mentioned it's always been the Senate's the upper class, and they've always been referred to as kind of the adults in the room. And I can tell you, I was embarrassed. The Senate this year behaved like children, and it was frustrating to me to see some of the disparaging things that went on. I can tell you it's not always easy, but the key to this is not making it personal. I can tell you, I've been called lots of things except for white male, and sometimes it's difficult. Sometimes it is very difficult, but what's important is to stay focused on the issue at hand, and that's what I've learned. Build a coalition that's got common goals and objectives, stay focused on it, and don't get distracted, don't play their game. That's how you get it done. Thank you.
Thank you. The candidates for District 15 can open your round 2 questions now.
This is a profoundly relevant topic.
John, sorry, let me read the question.
I was on a roll.
You can just roll with it, how's that? The question is actually the same as the previous one, so I'll read it real quick. If elected, how would you create a more cohesive environment within the elected parties? Sorry to ruin your
This is a profoundly relevant topic as we speak today. I don't know in my short time on this earth, the more divisive time in our nation. It worries me, it bothers me. We've got to do something. We've got to come together. United we fall. United we stand, rather. Divided we fall. Look, there are 3 issues right now that are occurring. There's strong emotions, there's opposing opinions, and there are high stakes. As Representative Worth has spoken about, we cannot ever compromise our values and our integrity. But what we can do is agree on one thing. It's mutual purpose. The mutual purpose that all of us share and carry and care for is the success of our county, our state, and our nation. Ground rules have got to be established in any type of meeting that understands that we're going to have differences of opinion, but we got to be collaborative to get the best solution possible. It troubles me additionally that as we look at this, we've lost our ability to disagree. The relevancy of the matter is today, we got to disagree, but understand that we all come from different perspectives, different backgrounds, different experiences. And through that, the best decisions will be made. And by doing so, we'll do what's right for the state in this nation. Remember 1861, remember Gettysburg, the Vietnam War, and all the protests that et cetera, have happened. I've seen war. I'm worried that we're on the cusp of something negative, larger than we ever have seen before. We've got to come together as a nation, and that doesn't mean sacrificing our beliefs, our upbringings, our views, and our vision. Without that, we're going to become more divided and we'll fall. So I look forward to establishing ground rules specifically to allow collaborative discussions, disagreements, that does so in a manner that is not personal attacking, alienating, or disrespectful. Thank you.
It's kind of tough here. We do need a cohesive environment, but that's one where, as mentioned, we talk like adults. When I first got into the state central party, you could count conservatives on one hand. Over the years, the conservatives have taken over. It used to be that if you talked about holding a legislator accountable for their vote, you were shut up very quickly. Today, the Republican Party has shared the voting records. Well, that got a lot of people upset because, and I'm sorry, I think that if you vote a certain way, everybody out there that you represent has a right to know how you're voting. But, so that has got a lot of people upset. And we had a group that decided to shut us down, and so they filed numerous lawsuits against the state party, against our county party. One of the leaders of that group called us, the conservatives, all cockroaches that need to be eradicated. That's not the way that adults talk. Now, for people that know me in the legislature across the state, I've got a good rapport with whether it's Democrats, Republicans. There's people that I work with all the way across the board. I've always stood for anybody and everybody to be able to speak their mind, whether we disagree or we don't. When I was chairman of the party here in Wayne County, every person got their chance to speak if they wanted to. And we go forward with that. I've got good rapport, like I said, with legislators and leaders across the state. And I've got a lot of respect from them. Thank you.
This is kind of a tough question. I'm sure everybody's heard of the term. We have a certain level of ruling class that exists in our legislature right now. I guess we like to call them rhinos or more liberal-leaning representatives. Just thinking of the term cohesive, that's a term we use in physics where it's things that are alike, they draw together. So to bring cohesiveness in our state legislature, to me it kind of says we need more people in the House that are more like-minded, that share our conservative values like the rest of us do. I think we're always going to have people that are going to fight against us no matter what we try to do. They're going to want to accept federal funding where we're opposed to that. And so it's difficult to truly make things cohesive when we do have the divisions in the parties and or divisions in the state that we do. It's hard to tell. That's a good question. We all have our own ideas on how we might do this. I'd be more than happy to sit down with members of any party affiliation and have discussions with them. But so far to date, from what I see and what I understand is until we get the idea of the ruling class out of the House, it's going to be difficult to make any significant progress. But, yeah.
Thank you. The candidates for District 19 can now open their round 2 questions. The question for representatives in District 49 is the same as we've had before, but I'll read it again. If elected, how would you create a more cohesive environment within the elected parties?
All right, thank you. For my entire career in teaching, sitting around teachers and sitting around coaches, being cohesive is paramount. When you're sitting around a bunch of coaches trying to pick one person that's the best athlete in the state of Wyoming, it's not an easy thing to do. Okay? What we're going to do, what I'm going to do, and what we're all going to do probably, is we're going to advocate, okay, for our community and for our values and for what we feel. Okay? But what I've learned about cohesiveness is you have to do it as a team. There's no I. You have to do it together. Okay? You sit in the group, you talk about your differences, you talk about what you're going to support, because we know everybody at the legislature and at the state is representing their community. Okay? So one thing that we have in common that's huge, that we see that we're in common, is that we're public servants and that we need to listen to our people. And how do we make the right decisions and the best decisions for that? We come together as a team, and we're professional, okay? And We act like it, and we lead by that. We lead by example, all right? And that's what we do, and I've done that my entire career, both positively and negatively, but in the end, one thing we do, and we need to understand, is that we are advocating for our voters, and you have to stand up for them.
So as has been pointed out, this is a very complex question. So we're kind of in an interesting position here in Wyoming because even the Democrats sound more like Republicans than the Democrats of other states do. I kind of want to go back to this analogy I heard years ago that it was, if you're 20 years old and you're not a Democrat, you don't have a heart. If you're 30 years old and you're not a Republican, you don't have a brain. So I'm advocating, I don't think that is true. I think we just look at things differently, and we understand what's important to us on different levels. I kind of have a unique understanding of this. My wife is from Brazil, and the first little bit that we were married, we got into fights all the time. Like 2 days later, we figured out we weren't even talking about the same thing. So we really just need to have a level of respect for people, fellow legislators, fellow constituents, and I feel like we need to sit down and we need to hear everybody's opinion and figure out why they feel those ways. Like I said in my opening statement, I have my principles and I know what I stand for, but I want to hear why you stand for what you believe in. Because I'm not saying I have all the answers and this is what I think and this is how it's always going to be. But I know the reasons why I think these things, and I'm sure that the Democrats and the Republicans, they have those same feelings. I think it's been brought up about rhinos a lot in the Republican side. We need to get back to where if you have Democrat beliefs, you need to be with the Democrats. The Republicans need to be with the Republicans so we can understand the actual balance of, okay, these are your ideals, these are our ideals, let's see what we can actually do to accomplish objectives.
Well, the first thing I thought of when I saw this question, and I think Sergio would agree, we don't have a cohesion problem within the Democratic Party. I've spent most of my career as an attorney solving problems for individuals, helping to solve problems for our community. When I gave my opening tonight, I talked about projects that we've worked on here in the community. Those were team projects. An individual wasn't going to accomplish those things in our community and make it better. It took a team to put those things together. The issues confronting our community now are not hot button issues that divide us. If we're to provide health care for those people in need, we need to work together to support solutions that will provide expanded care, especially for mental health and suicide prevention. If we are to deal with the instability in our educational funding mechanisms, we need to set aside our differences and come up with solutions. If we're to address the unfairness in our tax system, we need to work together. Funding of ambulance services and dispatch services in Uintah County is not a partisan issue. If we're to tackle our community's critical problem with affordable housing, we need to think outside the box and come together. We have too many divisions, whether it's partisan or within a party, that need to be set aside so that we can address solutions in our community. When you see my signs around town, they say, stop fighting, solve problems.
Thank you. At this point, I think we're going to take a quick 5-minute break, let everybody stretch their legs. Start up.